Hello, it's me, it's Simon again, and I thought I would make another video talking about the FX6, the FX9, but most importantly the A7S Mark III. Now, before we get there, I want to address a point that was raised by two people in my last video, and that was they said they enjoyed my videos because I wasn't a YouTuber. Now, in an effort to remedy that, I've decided to shoot everything on this video at f1.4 wide open with fairy lights in the background. And why not? Because it is almost Christmas. And it certainly is if you're watching this video at the moment. And by at the moment, I mean December 2020. If you're watching it next year in the future at any time, all we can say is let's hope the vaccine worked. But until then, I'm still at home. And as it's almost Christmas, I have got an early Christmas present. And that is the Sony A7S Mark III. Now, the camera itself is recording me at the moment, so I'm not going to be handling it, touching it, fiddling with it. And there's lots of great videos already out there with people handling it, touching it and fiddling with it. And also going out and filming with it. I'll be quite honest, it's cold and miserable outside. I'd rather sit on my sofa. And I'm going to tell you what I have found out about this camera so far. Now, I've only had it for a couple of days. I've had it like 2 or 3 days. But already I can tell you a couple of things about it. But before I do, I want to quickly say why I've got an A7S Mark III. Because in my last video, obviously I was talking about the FX6 as a B camera to my FX9. Now, where to start? The lineup is a bit of a mess. The FX6 is almost an FX9, but it's almost an A7S Mark III. And the A7S Mark III is almost an FX6, which is almost an FX9. Do you see what I mean? It is a mess at the moment. But I thought the FX6 is too much like an FX9. I wanted something lighter as a B camera. And the FX6 would make a good B camera with the FX9. But from what I can see, it's pretty much as wide and it's pretty much as tall. I mean, not exactly, but it is pretty much as tall. And I just want something smaller to go on a gimbal. And we know that Sony made a bit of a mistake with the FX6 in respect that it doesn't have any mic inputs when you take the handle off, whereas the A7S Mark III has got a mini jack input. And I'm recording this with a Shure VP83 microphone. Now, the multi-interface shoe at the top also takes the radio mics that I have got on my FX9, which are the Sony ones which interface without any cable, so I can put those on very easily onto this camera as well. But the main thing is size. I know the FX6 doesn't weigh much, but it does make me laugh when I see people, you know, in Facebook groups, and I apologise if you're one of these people who's built like a tank, like Schwarzenegger, who's walking around with an FX9 on a gimbal. That is not my bag. I want a small, lightweight gimbal with a small, lightweight camera that is great quality. And the A7S Mark III, we know, offers great quality. And that is why I've gone back to the dark side, something that I said I wasn't going to do again. See, I've had DSLRs in the past. In fact, my first DSLR was the Nikon D90. Now, if you've bought a camera in the last few years and you complain about rolling shutter, buy yourself a D90 and welcome to a world of pain. After that, I bought a 5D Mark II, and then I've had the GH5. But from the Sony lineup, I've had the A7S Mark II and the A7 Mark III, and now this is the A7S Mark III. And I say DSLR, and I know these are mirrorless cameras, and someone is going to put in the comments, actually I know a load of you are now just going to take the piss. I know it's not a DSLR, it is a mirrorless camera, but I'm old and I call it a DSLR. So first thing I noticed when I took this out of the box is the build quality. And on my Twitter account, I made a comment about that I felt this was more Canon than it is Sony. And by that, I mean, it just feels a bit chunkier, it feels a bit nicer, really. I mean, Sony make good cameras, don't get me wrong, but I think Canon have been making cameras longer. I guess they have, you know, very well-known brand. And the feel of a Canon camera is, you know, is very solid, it's very nice. And this camera does differ from my other Sony A7 series cameras in a couple of ways. First one is the hand grip is bigger. I don't think I'm imagining this, but it certainly feels grip bigger. I've sold my A7 Mark III, so I haven't got it here to physically compare anymore, but it does feel bigger. And the actual grip, the grip material, the rubber grippy stuff feels, well, grippier. It just feels nicer camera to handle and to use. And that goes a long way, doesn't it? You know, if you pick a tool up and it's a nice tool and you think, oh, this feels good, it's, you know, it's well made, you want to use it. I hate picking things up and thinking, well, I want to break this in a couple of days. And I don't think that's going to be the case with this camera. It feels solid. The other thing is the actual build quality, the metalwork of the camera. Is it metal? I guess it is magnesium, something like that. I don't know. I'm sure someone in another video will tell you what it's made of. But what I will say is it feels very well made, whatever it is made of. And things that make it very well made is just like the beveling on the edges of it. It just feels, it feels the next step up from the A7 Mark III, definitely. But it's not just about build quality as we know, it's what the actual image looks like. And I'm shooting this now, S-Log3 Cine Gamut thingy, which I usually have my FX9 set to when I shoot S-Log on my FX9. And hopefully the image quality looks okay. I'm cheating, so the autofocus is on. It's using the eye autofocus. I have got that set in to locked on, but with a fast response if I do want to focus on something else. But I'm not really focusing on anything else. I hope I'm just sitting here in focus with nothing sort of, flickering or pulsing behind me. The only thing I have shown you was the box of the camera, and that should have focused pretty quickly, I hope. I'll have a look in a minute. I'm digressing again though. But the autofocus on this camera is the bollocks. It's brilliant. It works really, really well. It's way above what I had on the A7 Mark III. And I really, really like it. I think it's great. I think it's, if you're into autofocus, and I'm not going to be a purist and say I'd never use autofocus. It's manual focus all the way, old boy. It is a tool, and it's being developed, and the autofocus is getting better and better. And if it's there for us to use, why not use it? If it's a B camera, you can have it on locked off shot in an interview, or you can do all kinds with it. The autofocus is great. The IAF is even better, and the tracking autofocus is just pretty crazy and out of this world. You touch on the screen what you want to follow, you point your camera in the rough direction, and it keeps it in focus. I mean, that's pretty special, really, isn't it? I think. The other thing that I like on this is the auto ISO, and I know I'm talking about automatic, but let's bear in mind one thing about the A7S Mark III, it's small, it's a tiny camera, it's got a small camera body. It might have lots of buttons on it, but I don't necessarily want to press all those buttons. This is a specialist camera for me, it's stuff I want to do particularly with it, outdoorsy stuff where I don't want to be carrying an FX9 in a rucksack around. This with a couple of lenses is absolutely spot on. And for me, that auto ISO takes another thing away that I need to think about, really, in the respect that I can be filming somewhere dark, and if I can't, for whatever reason, take lights with me or light the scene, it just works. Sure, it gets noisy when you go up to high ISO levels, but for what it is, it's way above and beyond anything I've had before, and I think that's pretty good. It's a very, very good camera with that as well. The thing that this camera doesn't have, there's two things that Sony have really annoyed me with, and one of those things I know they couldn't do, and that was the lovely auto variable ND, which the FX9 and the FX6 has. And there's £2,000 price difference, and that's what you're paying for with your FX6, that auto variable ND. And certainly with the FX9, when I've been running and gunning with it, I have that turned on, and if it's too bright, that comes in. If it's too dark, the ISO comes on. I mean, how simple is that? What a great solution. So with this mirrorless camera, I'm going back to the dark side where I'm carrying ND filters to screw onto the lens to reduce the light if it is too bright. I'm not going to fiddle with shutter speed, obviously, because that's just not a thing in video. I want to be at 50th when I'm recording 25p, because I'm in the UK and that's what we do over here. Odd, isn't it? Now, the other thing that I like is operationally the way that you can set my menu, and how you can very easily set the things that you want to use commonly in that menu, and it's easy to get to. The other thing, I like my shots slightly underexposed as opposed to overexposed, and you've got the exposure value. It's on a little dial now, so you can knock it under, and then what it's got on the top is one of those push buttons, so it locks, so you can't accidentally knock it and over or underexpose your images. You actually have to physically release it and turn it to do so. I'm using my V60 SD cards, which I had on my GH5, and they are recording XAVC-S, which is a long GOP format, which is a bit slower to edit. I'm going to buy some V90 cards, and then I'll be able to record the XAVC-S HI. No, not the H. That's the 265. The XAVC SI intraframe. God, I'm off on a tangent today. It's been a long week and it's only Monday morning. So you can do it at V90 with the faster cards. You can then shoot off speed up to 100 frames a second on the PAL camera. So you have got all of that in there as well. Overall, for owning this camera since Saturday, Monday morning now, I am very, very pleased. I think it's great quality. I think it is a lot of money, but I think it actually offers a lot of value for that money as well. It's a camera that doesn't disappoint, and if you're looking for a B camera for something like an FX9, probably for the FX6 or even an A camera, this camera offers a lot. I was reading this morning that the C70 has just been Netflix approved. I wonder whether this camera is going to get it or not. I'm sure time will tell. If you're watching this in a month's time, don't come back and say, well, of course it's Netflix approved, because it probably will be by then, or it might not be by then. Who knows? If you liked this video, like it, do one of those thumbs up thingies, subscribe, and you can see some more random rants and chats and stuff from me in the future. But more importantly, let me know what you think. If you've got an A7S Mark III, let me know what you think below. If you haven't got one and thinking about buying one and want to ask me a question, well, ask below and I'll see what I can do to answer. And that second thing that I didn't like about it is it doesn't have a waveform. This is a professional video camera in a stills body. It should have a waveform. Sony, waveform, histogram, no good for me. I don't understand histograms, horrible things. Oh, and it takes photos as well. See you next time.